Hey, welcome back. I got a hell of a response from you all looking at my bike collection. I guess you like old school choppers. I want to thank everyone for subscribing, liking and sharing, and for supporting my website. The web address is on the screen. I've got a few t-shirts for sale. I've got a lot of artwork for sale. We're starting a new project, guys. My shed was flooded out. I lost a fair bit of stuff. A lot of artwork got damaged. And I've got a bunch of old school chopper parts out there. I'm going to go through it all. We're going to build a chopper together, guys. I want your input. I've got frames, front ends, transmissions, rear ends. We're going to put a bike together right here. And we're going to ask you for your comments on oil tanks, petrol tanks, front ends, frames. So stay tuned and we'll give you some options this episode and comment on what you'd like to see. I really want to put a bit of the whole of Australia into this, or the whole of the world for that matter, into this bike build. And it's going to be an old school chopper. It's not going to be one of these polished up bikes that no one rides. We're going to take it for a burn. A few of these bikes here have been under many different styles. So I've got stuff tucked away from building those to building other people's bikes. So we'll go around. Let's go through all my junk and see what we can find. Brand new front tyre. What do we got up here? Petrol tank, petrol tank, petrol tank, petrol tank, seat, oil tanks, need some oil tanks, exhaust, early model back wheel, drum brake Y-glide, forgot I even had that. What do we got there? More petrol tanks. I'm pretty sure we're up for petrol tanks, but if you'd like to see me make a petrol tank from scratch, I'm up for it. I'm keen to do another one. I keep a lot of these tanks just for the fittings. Fuel taps and caps. I cut them out and weld them into the new tanks. Another front end. Narrow glide. Primary cover. Disc brakes. 57 panhead fuel tank. That's rare with the star model badge. Petrol tank. Primary. Petrol tank. I'm just realising how much stuff I've actually got going through this. We've only been to a couple of shelves. I've probably got half a motorbike. Just flick the lights on. It's pretty dark in here. Speaking of petrol tanks, check out this little beauty. I did this for Billy. Billy's my upholsterer. Came out very nice. Billy's a trimmer. He did all the trim in the Merc here. Got a few Mexican blankets in there, but he trimmed the whole Merc. Tuck and roll. Beautiful job. I also did his oil tank and fender. Don't forget, this is a smorgasbord. We're going to build a bike out of all this stuff, believe it or not, and I'm sure we've got enough parts here to do it. Okay, let's move on and see what we can find. Another front wheel. Posing as a grill. White wall tyre. Still got tread on her. Should be good. Oh, what's this? Primary cover? Okay. I see 57 straight leg frame. Panhead bow leg frame, Springer front end, long panhead rear fender, more petrol tanks, another front end, another front end, another front end. And in this area, if we can't find it, it doesn't exist. Just remembered, got another frame up there. Springer front end. Another frame. Need a bit more light so we can see where we're going. Front fender, risers. Woohoo! Belt drives, kickers, oil tank, oil tank, oil tank. Transmission. Here we go. That baby, we'll use that baby fine. It's brand new, been rebuilt. Buckets of parts. Forward controls, and look, chrome, another front wheel. Forget I've got half this stuff sometimes. So the plan is I'm going to get most of these things down, we'll lay it all out and you can pick what we're going to use. We'll probably start with a rolling chassis, so we'll get one of these frames, we'll get all the frames down, see which one's going to be the best to use. Comment on what we can do. Let's build a bike together. So this little oil tank here, spun aluminium, I bought when I was about 21 years old, put it in my shovel head. A lot of miles, a lot of oil's pumped through this sucker, so we might even use that. Still in really good condition for all them years on the road. Okay, this is a shelf of parts, and I just found, look, this is a mouse trap. They call it a mouse trap. So when Harley Davidson changed from foot clutch to hand clutch, they put this on, it mounts to your frame and pulls your clutch in and out so you can run a cable up to your bars. Made the clutch a lot easier to pull in. That's a pretty cool piece. What else have I got here? I've got a set of flatheads. I'm not going to build a flathead. Look at this. Harley Davidson kicker pedal. Genuine. I think that's too good to use. Suicide clutch pedal. Jockey shift. Just going around looking at all these pieces is a bit overwhelming, so I'm going to get as much stuff down as I can. Just maybe we'll start doing the rolling chassis. I'll get it out here and we'll film it all, and you guys can sort through the treasures and make a decision on what you want to see built. All this was up there. Luckily a couple of my friends dropped by. They did all the lifting for me. Now everything's on the ground. We're going to sort it out. Frame number 1. Frame number 2. Frame number 3. Okay, we got 3 frames down. Still got another one out the back, another one out the front, but we'll use these 3, one of these 3. I think I've already picked the one I prefer, but see what you reckon. I'll give you some details on them. See which one you'd like to see become an old school chopper. Let's go through them. So this one here is the oldest. So this is a panhead frame. It's still got a lot of little bits and pieces on it that are maybe even these hard to find these days. But it's old school choke, top engine mount. This has been cut off, but is a toolbox mount. It's had the speedo brackets cut off it, and then someone's made up some bodgy ones. So, but if we're going to run a sporty tank, we Frisco mount it. We'll cut all these old mounts off and tidy the top of the frame. Frisco mount is when you mount the tank up high on this frame rail. I do a lot of tanks like that. I like them mounted up high, show off the engine. It's already got a kickstand on it. It's got a couple of dashes with it if we run a Fat Bob tanks. I don't know what front end was on here, but they've put some sort of steering stop. That'll have to come off if we use it. This model actually ran mechanical brake, so this is even hard to find on some bikes now. This is the shaft that runs across to the back brake, and a lever on this side. So your lever goes there. There's a solid bar that pulls on the rear brake. I think I've got a couple of mechanical back brakes, so that'll be good for this. And then we've got this frame here. This is a straight leg frame. So this was only made for a couple of years. This was the last rigid they made before going to a swing arm frame. So these are pretty rare frames. I actually bought this off my friend Ollie years ago, and he doesn't know why he sold it to me, because it's pretty rare, and it's got similar features to this frame. It's got the mechanical brake. It's still got the mounts on for the dashboard and the Fat Bob tanks, and all the brackets and bracketry off this will fit onto that frame. It's all interchangeable. The thing with these frames is this bottom engine pattern for the studs ran from the flatheads from the 30s to right up until the Evolution motors, which were around to the 90s. With a bit of modification to the top of the frame, you could just about bolt any motor in this for what, 30 to for almost 50, 60 years, something like that. Crazy, eh? This frame here is good. It's a very collectible frame, so I don't know if I'd sell that separate or build a bike out of it. Now the last frame is a reproduction one of a soft tail frame. So soft tail, they tried to make them look like rigids by putting that rear section on upside down, and that pivots here. It makes it look like a rigid, but you've got suspension. The shock absorbers are hidden under the transmission here. Still the same bolt pattern for the motors. Look at that, 1, 2, 3, all the same bolt pattern for the motors, and the same bolt pattern for the transmissions. This is almost like a gooseneck frame, they call it, when they stretch the neck of the frame out here. call it a gooseneck. Looks like it's got a fair bit of rake on it. It really hasn't got any tank mounts yet, so it's a bit nicer to ride with suspension. I like getting these frames and cutting them down low and lining everything up so it looks like a rigid, but you've still got the suspension. This kick up here sort of I don't really like because it hides the flow of the frame down. A couple of frames I've done, I've remade all that and made it go in line, and like a rigid. Looks really good, really clean lines, and standing back everyone thinks it's a rigid. So I guess next we'll go through some front ends. That's a breakdown on basically the frames. These all look like they're standard rake, where this has got a big rake, means we've got to put a longer front end on here if we use it. But old school, you can go both ways. You can run a big long front end, or you run a short little front end. They both styles are good. One's more a bobber when you don't run the rake frames. So we'll get some fenders, oil tanks, and front ends out. We have a front end. Okay, number one front end, Springer. We've got another one over there, we've got another one in there, and a couple at the side. Let's get them together, see what we come up with. And it coming through, Y-glide. Triple trees for a Y-glide. What else have we got here? Oh, another Springer front end hidden in there. But that's going to be for my next secret project, I think. Oh, no, another one. Narrow glide. This Y-glide front end will suit either one of these two frames. Stock length, it might be a little bit longer, looks a little bit longer, might be about 2 inch over. We've got the triple trees there for it, they'll fit. So that's a possibility. It's got the drum brake instead of this is before the disc brake. I really like these drum brakes all polished up, you know, they look really cool. I'd like to put a 21-inch rim on that just to make it a little bit spindlier. It looks nice when you look in the front. You've got a big wide front end, nice narrow tyre, and this big brake hanging off the side. Looks really good. And then we've got an early Springer, and I'm sure I can find the rest of the pieces to that in the boxes. And then I've got a late model Springer that we modified. Andy from Fireball did this for me. Double rail leg on the back, and he shortened it to the length of an old school Springer. Did an awesome job on this. So I've got that, and I've got 3 or 4 Springers in parts, so I've got all the pieces to put this together. But it'll be a lot shorter than a late model Springer, so I think that'll be a good look for either one of those frames. Then we've got a late model narrow glide. These look good too, with 21-inch wheels and narrow bars. It gives a real narrow look to the whole bike, so we've got that option too. Probably be a little bit better on this later model bike. I think this is more of like a new school bike, so I'm really tempted to use an older frame. I think you'll all agree. But make some comments, see what you think, and we'll keep looking for parts. See what you think. Let us know in your comments what front end you like, what frame you like. Let's get that done, and then we can work out what back wheel we've got to look for, what braking system, and what oil tank we're going to use, fenders, and maybe make a gas tank. So don't forget, like, subscribe, buy a t-shirt. Catch you soon.